Okay, recording started.
Well, welcome everybody and good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Manuel Medrano. I'm the Environmental Services Manager for the City of Chula Vista. So this presentation will begin really soon. It is being recorded, as you probably heard. Participants will all be muted, but please be aware there's a Q&A at the bottom of the screen where you could ask your questions towards the end of the presentation. Well, actually, no, as we say there at various points of the session, it's a little bit of a change. So thank you again for joining us. And today we have someone with a lot of knowledge when it comes to recycling markets and recycling programs with a couple of decades of experience. Marty Solomon, who's a recycling specialist or sustainability specialist with the City of Chula Vista. She also has a lot of private industry experience. Will she be speaking on and explaining this whole concept of WishCycling and Recycling 101. So again, before we begin, I'd like to invite everybody on September 16th at 4 p.m. We'll have another, I believe the last of the sustainability series presentations, and it's going to entail the Chula Vista Zero Waste Plan, which is Marty will touch on this as well in one of her slides. But please join us on the 16th at 4 p.m. for this very informative presentation. So with that, I'd like to kick it off to Marty, and so she could begin her presentation.
Thank you very much, Manuel. My name is Marty Solomon. I'm a recycling specialist with the City of Chula Vista. I've worked at the city since January of 2002. And prior to that, I worked for a waste hauler for 7 years. So I've been a trashy lady for over 25 years now. Next slide, please. WishCycling. That's kind of a new term that has evolved. And the definition of WishCycling is putting a non-recyclable item into your recycling bin and crossing your fingers that the item will get recycled somehow. There is a big difference between recyclable and recycling. As much as we would like to recycle everything into useful end products, the reality is that many materials sadly are not recyclable. Putting items in the recycling bin with the hope that they will be recycled runs the risk of contaminating recyclable materials. So when in doubt, throw it out. And the best way to avoid WishCycling is to reduce the amount of waste you generate in the first place. The biggest culprit in our waste industry crisis is source production. So consider rethinking and revising your purchasing habits, and in particular, reduce your reliance on single-use convenience products. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things that people get very confused on is people say, well, it's got that little recycling arrow symbol on the bottom. And that's true. Those are what they call plastic resin codes. And all they indicate is the type of material that that particular container is made of. So it's just a code to indicate what the composition of the material is. If you look at this slide, on the left column, you'll see generally accepted items. That would be number one, would be like your soda bottles, your water bottles. Number three, PVC, would be shampoo and window cleaner bottles. Number five would be your yogurt container and ketchup bottles. Then on the right side, you see some items that, yeah, they may be a number one or number two, but the industry has a challenge in recycling those items, so you still would not want to put them into your recycling container. Next slide, please. I'm going to give you some quick general recycling facts. Recycling is the top action society can do to improve the environment, the economy, sustainable manufacturing, and to prevent waste from going into the oceans. I don't know how many of you realize, but the main issue of the recycling crisis in the US is due to the confusion of what goes where. The US level is currently at approximately 21.4%. California is at a 34 to 36%. Now, when recycling levels reach 75% in the United States, two things are going to happen. The environmental and CO2 equivalent, it'll be the equivalent of removing 55 million cars from the road each year, and it has the potential to create 1.5 million new jobs. Next slide, please. Now, what is Chula Vista doing? Chula Vista currently has a 62% diversion rate, but we are in the process of adopting a zero waste plan that strives to get us close to 90% diversion by 2035. As Manuel had mentioned, on September 16th at 4 p.m., there will be a presentation regarding the zero waste plan. And you can actually go to the city's website, which is listed on this slide, and view the zero waste plan and have the opportunity to give public comment through till the end of September. Next slide, please. Now let's stop the confusion. What goes where? This slide, I have a flyer that we've generated that has what you put in your trash, what you put in your recycling, and what's going to go into your food waste, yard waste container. But today we're going to concentrate on recycling. Next slide, please. Now, in my day, the 3 R's were reading, writing, arithmetic. Today, the 3 R's are reduce, reuse, and recycle. The whole thing is if you reduce the amount of waste that you generate, you're not going to have to worry about what goes where because you're not going to have it to begin with. The next step is reuse it. Instead of recycling that plastic water bottle, if you look at the picture on the left there, that somebody actually took 3 water bottles and made a toothbrush holder for it. And then, of course, you always have the option and should use a reusable bag when going to the grocery store. And, of course, then recycle correctly everything that you can recycle that you haven't been able to reuse. Next slide, please. Now, what to put in the container? I think we all know about cardboard boxes, and you want to make sure that you flatten them so that you have plenty of room. Paper, aluminum and steel cans, plastic bottles and jugs, and then, of course, glass bottles. Items that you do not want to put into your recycling container would be plastic bags, styrofoam, toys, scrap metal, and as far as soiled paper, greasy pizza boxes, and food and yard waste, those are going to be items that will be going into your food waste, yard waste containers. Now, as far as the pizza box, if you really want to be a die-hard recycler and do it correctly, anytime you get a pizza, part of the box is totally clean, grease-free, cheese-free. That part you would actually rip off and put into your recycling container. The part of the pizza box that has the greasy, cheesy part would actually go into your food waste container. The electronics and medical waste, those would go to our household hazardous waste facility because they have to be handled differently, and you would not want to put them into your trash, recycling, or your green waste container. Now, if anybody's doing any kind of remodeling on their home, construction waste, you can't put it in any of the bins that you have at home. You would need to call Republic Services because it's going to depend on how much material you have, and they will give you the proper guidance to dispose of things like drywall, things like that you might have if you're redoing a bathroom or something in your home. Next slide, please. We have some other items that are kind of difficult sometimes to get rid of. Cooking oil. With the holiday season coming up, a lot of people deep fry turkey and other items throughout the year. What you don't want to do with your cooking oil is you don't want to pour it down the drain, you don't want to pour it down the sink, and you certainly don't want to pour it down the toilet. If you live in a single family home, you can actually call Republic Services and make arrangements for them to pick it up curbside on your collection day. The only caveat is make sure that you put it in a container with a very secure lid. Typically, it would be best to use the container that the oil came in the first place, and just set it at the curb. You do have to call them, like I said, to make arrangements because it's a special truck. Or if you don't want to wait till your collection day, or you live in an apartment, you can certainly take it to our household hazardous waste facility located at 1800 Maxwell Road. And that facility is open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the great thing is no appointment is necessary. Next slide, please. Another item that people don't know what to do with, or they get confused about where it goes, is batteries and electronic items. Now, batteries are particularly dangerous just to put in your recycling container because they can create a fire hazard if the two contacts touch. The battery may be weak and not operate the device that you had it in, but there still could be enough juice that when the contact of two batteries, they come in contact with each other, it could potentially start a fire. So what we suggest is that you take a little bit of tape and just put it over the contacts to avoid that. But these items, again, can be taken to our household hazardous waste facility on Maxwell Road and on Wednesday or Saturday. And the danger with these items, if you just put them in the recycling bin, is they can cause fires at the landfill, they can cause fire in the truck, and even at the recycling facility itself, and they will contaminate the recyclables. Next slide, please. Now let's take the guesswork out of it. Reduce what you generate. Now we all know that the plastic water bottle is recyclable, but it's still an item that you have to discard. It's still a single-use item. If instead of getting bottled water, you use a refillable bottle, you can probably get hundreds, if not more, equivalent of the bottled water in your reusable bottle, and you only, at some point, yes, you may have to get rid of it, but you only have one item to get rid of versus the hundreds of bottles of bottled water that you would have to dispose of. Another thing is the almighty plastic bag. We recommend that you use reusable bags rather than plastic bags, because plastic bags typically are single use. If you happen to have a dog or a cat, they are good for cleaning up after your pet, and then of course they would go in the trash. But obviously a reusable bag is much more durable, and when you go to the grocery store, typically they are going to be charging you 10 cents for the reusable bag. So not only are you helping the environment, but you're helping your wallet by not having to buy the plastic bags as well. Next slide, please. Now, I actually had fun doing research on this because some of these items it wouldn't have occurred to me to use. I don't know about you guys, but I do eat cereal for breakfast once in a while. So yes, I knew to flatten the cardboard box and dispose of the bag liner. But why not reuse that bag liner to separate hamburger patties before you freeze them? Wrap your sandwiches that you're going to take to lunch, store lettuce or other leafy vegetables, or just use them as reusable snack bags. The plastic berry boxes, I love fresh strawberries. And if you put your bulbs in the plastic berry box before you plant them, then pardon me, it actually will protect your bulbs from animals eating your flowers before they have a chance to bloom. Plastic food containers, such as butter tubs, pardon me, and yogurt containers come in a variety of sizes and are perfect for a wide range of food. Containers with tight seals are a perfect fit for soups and liquids as well. Dryer sheets. I don't know how many of you use, a dryer sheet when you're doing your laundry, but they are perfect to wipe down your electronic items because just by their very nature, they reduce static cling and they keep them free of dust. And you can also use them just to do your regular dusting in your home by saving them. And then instead of using um, chemicals that you would need to polish your furniture or dust it, you have these dryer sheets that you've already bought. Egg cartons. And this does, if they are the cardboard type of egg carton, you can use them for this or you can recycle them. But if you get the white styrofoam egg cartons, then definitely this is a better alternative than throwing them in the trash. If you have any Christmas ornaments, you can use those as storage because they will protect them and keep them nice and safe each holiday season. And then you have prevented yourself from throwing something into the trash. And then, of course, plastic bottles, you can, doesn't matter what size, whether it's a water bottle, soda bottle, milk jug, you can actually cut them in half and use them for planters. You can even make hanging planters out of them rather than have to throw them out or recycle them. Next slide, please. Now, a couple things that I want you to remember. You need to keep the containers empty, clean, and dry. And when I say clean, I don't mean it has to be run through the dishwasher or any major washing. But obviously, if you're having a pasta dinner and you've got your favorite tomato sauce, you want to scrape all of that out of the can because there's nothing worse than not having enough sauce for your spaghetti dinner. But also, you don't want to have that sauce contaminate paper or cardboard. So you want the cans as clean as possible. If you didn't drink all your water or soda or juice, whatever came in the bottle, just dump the liquid into the sink, put the cap back on the bottle, and then put the bottle in the recycling container. Another thing that people do accidentally, and they don't realize that it is the improper thing to do, is you don't need to bag your recyclables. Just put them in the cart loose. There's no need to do that. Now, I don't know how many of you know what tanglers are, but anything that can get caught up in the equipment at the materials recovery facility is considered a tangler. So wire hangers, rope, garden hoses, things like that. We don't want to put those in your recycling bin. The main reason is a lot of this machinery, the materials recycling facility that the city of Chula Vista takes its materials to, they process about 19 to 20 tons of material an hour. So if something gets caught in the equipment, they have to stop the presses, untangle the equipment, and then keep going. So that can definitely slow them down and create issues for them. Your household hazardous waste products, such as paint, pool chemicals, things like that, again, you would take to our household hazardous waste facility and not put in any of your containers that you put curbside. Next slide, please. Now, some of you may be wondering, are these recyclable or are they trash? Now, interestingly enough, just like in the medical field, with your cell phones, with computers, there's been all kinds of advances in the recycling industry as well. And I checked with the processor that accepts our recycling materials. He's the gentleman in charge of the materials recovery facility. And markets have expanded. So items such as your clear plastic Starbucks cup or your big gulp from 7-Eleven or the McCafe cup, just plastic straws in general, your plastic takeout containers, and even those strawberry fruit baskets, if you have some left over after using some of them to plant your bulbs in for your garden, they can actually be recycled. Next slide, please. Now, this is something that we see a lot of, and you may wonder why I have up here recyclable or trash. Well, the answer is actually both, because the cardboard box is indeed recyclable, but the film plastic is not. So when people put this in their container with, just as this picture shows, they actually are contaminating the recycling, because the materials recovery facility with all they process, they don't have time to rip the film plastic off. So what we ask of you is, in the case of this cardboard box, you would rip the film plastic off, put it in the trash, and then you would recycle the cardboard box. Next slide, please. Now, because of COVID, there are some items that we have that people didn't use at all, perhaps, or not in the quantity that they use today. The biggest thing is we're all using disinfectant wipes and wiping everything down. So the plastic container for the disinfectant wipes is indeed recyclable, but the wipe itself is not. Any personal protective equipment related to COVID, such as your masks or gloves, would belong in the trash and not the recycling bin. And please remember, don't litter, don't drop it on the ground. Just make sure that it goes into the trash. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to give you some recycling facts. By recycling a single aluminum can, you can actually save enough energy to power your TV for 3 hours. It also requires 95% less energy and water to recycle a can than it does to create a can from virgin materials. 5 plastic water bottles recycled can provide enough fiber to create a square foot of carpet or enough fiber to fill one ski jacket. They also use recycled PET bottles for what they call fluff in car doors in your in automobiles for the doors. They use that. I actually have a backpack that is made out of 8 2-liter water bottles. They can even make shirts. When they break the plastic water bottles down, the material is so soft that it almost feels like cotton. So they even make clothing out of this. And if you recycle 1 ton of plastic bottles, it actually saves the equivalent energy used to power a 2-person household for 1 year. Now, by recycling glass, just 1 glass jar saves enough electricity to light an 11-watt CFL bulb for 20 hours. And more than 28 billion glass bottles and jars end up in the landfill every year. And this is the equivalent of filling up of 2 Empire State Buildings every 3 weeks. And the thing is, glass doesn't decompose. It will be there hundreds of years from now. Now, another item that people need to know about recycling, because it definitely helps save trees, is cardboard and paper. Recycling a ton of cardboard saves 46 gallons of oil, because all the processing that's involved from getting the tree from the forest to the paper mill, and all the processing that goes involved in that. And recycling a stack of newspaper just 3 feet high saves 1 tree. Next slide, please. Well, I hope I've answered some questions and have given you some things to think about. Here's my contact information. And if there are any questions, Manuel, let me know and I will be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you very much, Marty. That was great. Very informative, great information that could all help us alleviate this issue with littering, because we hear stories on the news and on the internet quite often about plastic pollution in our oceans. And one of the best ways to make sure, obviously, the first place will be not to use a lot of this plastic so it doesn't end up polluting our waterways. But the second option is to make sure that they go into the right container and make sure that we don't just discard them not in the trash, but certainly not in our open spaces and on the street, to prevent any litter issues too. So, and we do have a couple of questions that I'd like to bring up, and you might have answered Rita's question, the first one that came in, and I think you did. Do you wash metal cans and plastic bottles?
You don't have to wash them as far as having them pristine clean. The only thing I do personally is I will run a little water over it, because depending where you live, so you don't have an ant problem, and that would alleviate any kind of ants or other critter issues. But no, you do not have to wash them so they're perfectly clean, because any food residue would burn off in the meltdown process.
Great point about the ants too. Also, there was another question here. It says Marty mentioned the benefits of recycling 75% of what we throw away. In terms of what we currently throw away, what percentage is actually recyclable? Will it be close to 75%?
Well, what they're talking about as far as reaching a 75% diversion is there are still so many items that go to the landfill. You would be amazed how many plastic water bottles, for an example, wind up in the landfill each day. So we're talking about basically in an ideal world, if everything that could be recycled and would get us up to a 75% diversion rate or higher, that's what they were talking about with the statistics about the 55 million cars off the road and then the 1.5 million jobs.
I would like to add also that the state has a formula in which they determine what that percentage, that diversion percentage is, or the 75%. So in their planning for reaching a 75% reduction or diversion rate, they apply that formula, which also applies to how many pounds per person per day each citizen or each resident of California creates. That's how they apply it to a lot of to all the jurisdictions. So to answer your question as to what is currently, what percentage is actually recyclable, well, based on that formula that the state created, they believe that there is enough material out there that is actually that is recyclable to make the 75% requirement or the 75% number be true. So, and like Marty said, we're throwing away a lot of stuff. A lot of glass is unfortunately, going into the trash. A lot of cardboard and paper is still going into the trash. And we actually proved that. We actually did, meaning Chula Vista, we did our own waste characterization study, and we saw that there is a lot of paper still going into the trash. So ourselves, we could do a lot better to make sure we reach that statewide goal to get to 75%. We got another question here, and it says, do you need to show anything, license or bill to prove residency at the HHW facility?
When you go to the facility, a city employee will be there. They will ask you what jurisdiction, and your driver's license, registration or utility bill will suffice to provide proof of residency.
Great. And then next question, still related to household hazardous waste, is there a limit on the amount of times you could visit the facility, the HHW facility each year? And what's the maximum amount of items that you could bring per visit?
Well, per the Department of Transportation regulations, you can bring 15 gallons or 125 pounds. And the reason for that is purely safety, because if heaven forbid there was some kind of accident and a spill, they would want to minimize the potential danger to yourself and to the public as a result of that, because typically we're not going to have, just as private citizens untrained in the transportation of hazardous material, we're not going to have the proper equipment in our cars to necessarily contain a spill. As far as the number of visits a year, I believe it's what, 3, Manuel? I'm not sure, to be
No,
honest.
it's actually unlimited. But
Unlimited now?
it's unlimited. But if you are a resident that shows up several times a month, then we'll probably flag you as potentially a business, and then we have another program for businesses that we could help you with. But it's pretty much unlimited. So as many times as you need to come. It's very, very, very rare that folks come more than a few times a year, actually. So usually people want to use up their Saturday morning for something else. They just take 1 or 2 loads and they're done with it for the rest of the year, if that. Um, actually, this is more of a suggestion. Is a great suggestion here. It says dryer sheets are great for polishing metals, including silver bowls and trays. So I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's great to know. So because you usually just grab them and throw them in the trash. So I wonder if it's after they're used or before you use them. I hope it's after. So that's a really great reuse and repurposing idea. We have another a question here, and it says if a recyclable container is put in the blue recycling bin, but it still has a little bit of liquid or material in it, what do they do with it? Do they empty out the material and then recycle it, or just throw it away in the trash?
Well, I know when it gets to the facility, they put it aside. If it's got enough liquid, they would put it aside, and they, depending on the time they would have that particular day, they would either empty it out or they would just wind up trashing it. But obviously, they would want to try to save the material to be able to recycle it.
Yeah, and I would imagine also that after the material is put on the floor as it's being dumped by trucks, when with the tractors that drive over this material, when they crack open those bottles or cans, or those bottles and or jars with liquid, it just does ruin a lot of the paper and the cardboard. So that's why we insist on folks to make sure that it's as empty as possible, particularly make sure that there's not a lot of liquid in there. We got another question here. It says, I have a broken plastic clothes hangers, and I wasn't sure where to place them if they go in the blue bin. Are they recyclable?
Typically, plastic hangers would indeed have to go into the trash, because unless you can actually tell what number is on there, and I showed a chart in the presentation earlier, but I would say typically they would have to actually go into the trash.
Right. And then we have a follow up here from the suggestion we got on the dryer sheets. It's after you use them in the dryer, so that's great to know because that's a repurposing idea there. You could also use them to freshen up the inside of your shoes after they've been used in the dryer. So that's good to know. Great. So it looks like we have another suggestion here. Oh no, sorry, a question. Are plastic egg cartons, are clear plastic egg carton containers recyclable in the blue recycling bin?
I honestly do not know the answer to that question. I'm not sure, but that is definitely something that I will look into, because if it is becoming more prevalent, that would be a good thing to know. Offhand, I would say they probably are, but I would want to make sure before I, told you officially that, yeah, go ahead and put them in your blue bin.
Marty, I know. They
Well, what's
actually
the
are
answer?
recyclable because they are made out of polypropylene or number 5. Most of them are. They have to be flexible. They can be the crinkly style clamshell container type. So those are, because they're basically made almost out of this. Well, they're made out of the same thing as those clear Starbucks and Big Gulp cups. So it's still within that question. It says we buy roasted chickens from Costco and other grocery stores with the black bottom and the clear top. So which one of those is recyclable?
Well, the clear top would be for sure. Once the containers with the black colored uh, bottoms, when once a container is been colored black, it's very hard to do anything else with it, because you can take something from clear to a color, even from white to another color. It is more difficult. It would be a specialized market for that, and it's rather difficult to find that.
We have another question. Actually, it's more of a, this is not really a recycling question, but they're asking if flushable wipes, because Marty, you were talking about wipes, are they okay to flush? I heard they shouldn't go in the toilet. What is your answer, Marty?
You would not want to put those down the toilet, because they have the potential of clogging the pipes, so you would not want to do that.
Yep. Then we have another question here. What if my recycling can goes missing? My neighbor's can recently disappeared, and he isn't sure what to do. Should he call the city?
All he would need to do would be to call Republic Services and let them know, and they would deliver another container to your neighbor.
And related to containers, what if the recycling can gets damaged?
If it gets damaged, the same thing. If the lid's cracked or the hinge breaks, all they would need to do is call Republic and request a container exchange.
All right. Another question we got here is there a hotline or somewhere where I could find information on recycling specifically in Chula Vista?
Well, we do have our webpage. You would go to the city's website, chulavistaca.gov, and then just put /clean. Or you could actually call our hotline at 619 691 5122.
And I could also add that you should also follow us on social media. We have a page or an account on Instagram and Facebook. It's at hashtag clean or Chula Vista clean, and you'll find it there. And you could also send us messages that way as well. I have another question here. Um, so different do different cities in San Diego County offer different options for recycling? For example, you mentioned plastic cups, straws, and straws are recyclable here, but it's not necessarily the same elsewhere. Also, what about block styrofoam? I thought in some places it's recyclable. So let's
It
first
would
take the first question if you want. Is it do different cities offer different options for recycling?
it would be smart to check if you don't live in Chula Vista, it would definitely be smart to check with the hauler uh, that your city uses just to make sure, because it depends on what materials recovery facility your particular hauler would use as to what they accept and what they don't accept. The general things such as cardboard, paper, things like that are going to be the same. But for the unique specialty items, I would actually check with your hauler. Now, as far as the block styrofoam goes, in Chula Vista, if you have the block styrofoam, the type that will flake off and snap when you try to break it, kind of thing, that is indeed recyclable. But the spongy type of styrofoam or styrofoam plates, the packing pellets, cups, things like that, is not.
And certainly not the styrofoam clamshells for food.
No.
Those are definitely not recyclable. We have another question here. Is there a place where we can send photos of items we question if they could be recycled?
You could actually email our environmental services email and send the picture, and we would be happy to answer the question for you. So you can actually find that. Go to our website and then send an email from the website to environmental services, and we would be able to assist you.
And that email address is environmentalservices@chulavistaca.gov or .gov. Great. Let's see if let me check if there's other questions here. Um, does the city host a site for Coastal Cleanup Day in September? Or does the city have its own cleanup event?
We do have our Beautified Chula Vista event that will be happening I believe it's October yeah, we're going to be doing it in October. Um, as far as the coastal cleanup, you would have to contact I Love a Clean San Diego to see exactly what sites in Chula Vista they may be having.
Yeah, so there is sites in Chula Vista where it's going to be where we're going to have a Coastal Cleanup Day uh, hosted by in different sites of the city. And yeah, thank you very much, Marty, for mentioning the Beautified Chula Vista event coming up in the fall. And please visit our website and also follow us on social media to see when that more information is coming out about that soon. So, well, great. We have somebody on staff here from the city that's mentioning that the event is actually scheduled for October 23rd from 8 a.m. to 12 to noon. And if you like to sign up, you could always we'll be sending out information, but you could always let us know early by sending an email to that environmental services at chulavistaca.gov. Um, another question is I would love a tour of the materials recovery facility. Is it open for public tours? And I actually have information on that. They're actually working on retooling that facility it's the facility off of the 94 freeway that is run and managed by EDCO, another waste hauler here in the region. And they told us because there's a couple of requests from the community. So they are going to be hosting tours in the fall, which is just around the corner, in fact. So we'll follow up with us, John, and we could get you in a list of folks that could go visit the facility. See, I believe that's. Oh, here's another question: is there data that shows what are the most recycled items locally?
We do every 6 months, residentially anyway, we do an allocation study to get percentages of what people recycle, and we collect materials for a week all from every area of the city, and then they actually do a special sort and we get percentages, and we do that every 6 months. Obviously, because of COVID, we did not do one at all in 2020, and I'm in the process of finding out if we're going to do one in October of this year. But that would be, if that's the data that the person asking the question is referring to, then yes, we do have that data.
I also like to add that Cal Recycle, which is the agency in the state that manages all this data for waste and recycling, they do have a couple of portals where information has to be reported by the different collection facilities and landfills, and including the recycling facilities. So you could go in there and look to see at least what is the material that some of these local facilities are recycling, collecting, and recycling. So at least you could see what EDCO is doing regionally, and because they also process recyclables from other cities, not just us. Um, got another question here. Says here, I heard that residents can receive the Clean newsletter. So it's a monthly newsletter that the city Office of Sustainability sends out. Says, how do I sign up to get it? So that one I could answer. It's great, super easy. You could go to our website, chulavistaca.gov/clean/clean, and you could there's on the main page there you could scroll to the bottom and you'll see previous versions of this newsletter, and then there's also a way to sign up to get this newsletter monthly with great information. By the way, I really recommend it. Next question we have is, since most recyclable bottles and cans end up going to the landfill, and well, we'll address that, but I like to dispute that. Are there huge benefits from recycling these items? Why don't we have people or equipment at the landfill to pull out the bottles and cans so they could be recycled? What do you think, Marty?
Well, I think people are more aware to recycle the bottles and cans. There is a benefit because there are governmental restrictions on the capacity that landfills have before they are forced to close. So everything that we can keep out of the landfill and give it that much more capacity helps Chula Vista. It helps the environment. And I firmly believe at one point a totally new industry may evolve where they do go back into these closed landfills and actually uh, I've heard it called landfill mining, where they actually will go in and extract the materials. As far as doing it while the landfill's open, there possibly could be safety concerns about people, on the active face of the landfill. That would be something that could definitely happen in the future. I just don't know about currently.
I agree. It's a safety issue as well. But yeah, in the near future, we might have to go back and mine some of this material that's buried all over the world, and at least in California, where it's well documented within the landfills. And I apologize. I think I read this in the wrong way. I thought it was mentioning that most of the stuff we already recycle is going to the landfills. And that wasn't the case. What was meant here is that we're unfortunately not doing a good job recycling, and a lot of the cans are going into and bottles are going to the landfill. But we're doing a good job in Chula Vista. We're hoping to get a lot better. Obviously, this is the purpose of these type of sessions, to make sure we educate, and hopefully you could help us educate as well. You are the folks that are sitting here listening to these messages are basically our zero waste champions, our recycling champions, which, by the way, will be a program coming up in the near future. So please keep an ear out for that. So you could help us disseminate this information about recycling, and then suggesting folks, if they have questions, to contact or go to the website or our social media accounts. Let's see, it looks like that might be the end of our questions. And I don't see any more. I hope we answered all your questions. Marty, thank you very much for everything you did, for all the information you gave us. Great info again. And we encourage everybody to please help us again disseminate this information. Recycling is going to be and waste diversion from landfills is going to be a lot more of a salient topic in the near future. As many of you might know already, we have a food waste and organic waste program coming up in not just in Chula Vista, but throughout the state of California. One of the first states to adopt a regulation like this, that is to keep organic waste out of the landfills and then from creating methane, which is a very, very harmful greenhouse gas that is affecting obviously our climate. So keep an eye out again for more information from our Office of Sustainability and from Republic Services as well. This program is rolling out soon, and as of January 1st, 2022, as a resident, you'll be able to put your all food waste, into your green or yard waste container. And if you don't have a yard waste container, you'll receive one from Republic Services. So again, please visit our website and our social media for more information on that. And we'll be also sending mailers out to all our residents and businesses in Chula Vista. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Again, thank you, Marty. Thank you for all the great questions. And everybody, have a good rest of your afternoon, evening, and rest of the week. Thank you very much.